What if the reason you're stuck at work or in your relationship isn't about skills, but about knowing yourself well enough?
Our guest today, Eric G., has tapped over 50,000 people and spent 2 decades helping teams, leaders, and individuals unlock their potential.
He's the creator of the Youtopia 16, as well as has an amazing book called The Power of Personality.
He's worked with everyone from educators to entrepreneurs to help them stop fighting their personality and start using it.
So as you listen, ask yourself, what part of you have you been downplaying just to fit in?
And stay with us till the end because Eric shares one simple, powerful shift to help you show up more like yourself this week. Hi, I'm Claude.
And I'm Jess.
We are corporate employees by day, entrepreneurs by night, and work besties for life.
Join us as we explore how work besties lift each other up, laugh through the chaos, and thrive together in every industry.
Work besties!
Welcome, Eric.
Thank you for having me, even with my very hoarse, low voice. I'm getting over a bit of a cough.
So we thought we would kick off and get right into who you are. Can you take us back to a time when you felt like a total misfit? And that moment where you felt like what you're wired clashed with what your expectations were?
I always bring it back to school, and I think school is so influential in everyone's life. Part of my personality typing methodology is based on differences in values. When we're in school, we're all taught like very, very specific values, like follow the rules. The first thing you do is like figure out what the rules are in the class, like what your name is, put it exactly on the right type of paper that you have. And I think in general, like that didn't necessarily fit my value system, this like very structured, linear approach. I do think it fits about half the population. So I think that's why students in general kind of flow into it and assume that it's the right way for everybody. But for me, I kind of felt like, well, I don't maybe want some of the things that everybody else wants. Maybe I felt like I should because I was being told that, but deep down inside, it wasn't particularly feeling right. As you get older, it's like the kind of like you should get married, have kids, a 9-to-5 job, buy a house. I was talking to my niece one time and she said I was really bad at adulting, which kind of hurt my feelings. And I was like, what is adulting to you? And she's like, oh, it's easy. It's owning a house. I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting form or like thought process in terms of adulting. Now but I was like, oh, okay, I didn't really think about it that way. And sometimes we're ingrained with that, and I don't think it's the right approach, especially not for everybody. And that's what got me into personality typing methodology. And eventually I started my own education company, and I did that for about a decade. So that's where the tens of thousands of people came in. We'd rather have about 1,000 students a year, and I would teach my teachers how to use this methodology to work individually with each student so that they weren't necessarily throwing their own bias onto the students.
There are a lot of personality tests out there. Yours, how does it differ? And what really is your personality test?
The easiest way to say it is it's animals. People remember that better. Like people will always remember if they're a fox. You know, they're like, oh, I'm a fox. Foxes love to be foxes, right? The biggest like intellectual difference would be that I focus mainly on a difference of values versus a difference of a lot of personality tests. Like go like, oh, are you introverted or extroverted? Or are you like more structured or are you more like spontaneous? And or are you more skilled at this or maybe skilled at this? And I'm more like, well, skill is more a point of practice, and introversion and extroversion doesn't really make sense because oftentimes we can be one at different moments depending on how connected we feel to the situation. And generally the context is determined by our own value system, right? If it's something that you value, if you're in a situation where it's like really means something to you, then you're going to be more outgoing because it's something that you have a lot of passion for. If you're not the biggest golf fan and you're in the middle of a golf match, yeah, you're going to be kind of quiet because you really don't care. So I think that's kind of the biggest difference.
But isn't value being taught? You're not born with a value. You create them. And can value change within your.
I find that most people can't change. I think we grow. I always say we can grow into better versions of ourselves or worse versions of ourselves based on how mature we are. So I waver based on when people say, oh, well, you can develop my values, because I sometimes feel like it's just someone trying to change you into what they are. If someone says, oh, I don't really want to have kids, and someone says, oh, don't worry, when you get older, you'll change your mind. It's like, why would you assume that someone's going to change their mind just because they got older? Maybe it's your value and that's what happened to you. But I do think that, like, the way I determine different personality packs is what I call them. The majority of people in the world value safety and security. So you can kind of tell that our society is kind of based on that, and that's kind of a good thing. So they're the typical, like, we follow the rules, not because we follow the rules because we're boring. We follow the rules because without structure and without a certain sense of certainty, then the world becomes unsafe. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I think a lot of elementary school teachers, high school principals, or principals in general do fit into that personality type, and it leaves kids feeling in a safe and secure world. But that's not everybody. And for every kindergarten teacher who knows they have half the class listening to the rules, there's about a third of the class that are running around grabbing things and throwing things up in the air and trying to figure out what's going on. And I think that's probably a better indicator of us as adults as well.
Eric, when you talk about the typology of people, how do people come about this? Like, why would they want to do this?
I think it's for everyone who's ever felt like different or felt like, wow, my values are different than the ones that my parents are telling me, I have a student who's told me one time, she's like, I don't want to grow up. And I told her, I was like, I know exactly how you feel. You do have to grow older. You don't have to grow up in the way that you think you have to grow up or the way that your parents have been telling you you have to grow up. We all have our own growth arc, and it is often determined by our personalities. And it's just difficult when about half the population kind of fits into one personality sphere because their values tend to get pushed on to everybody else. And I'm not saying they're bad values. It's great that they have them, but it also kind of underappreciates everyone else.
So going back to the kindergarten, where everybody doesn't always follow the rules. But shouldn't they? Because at the end of the day, you're in a class, right? Your value is not to listen. So you're going to run around the class nonstop. But it is not always socially acceptable because you still, you're bothering people. You still need to have control. So how do you...
I know exactly what you mean. How do you be the warden while also being the therapist one-on-one? And obviously in a kindergarten class or anytime when you have like a teacher with a large set of students, you kind of have to work towards the majority. So I totally get it. Like, I'm not saying that teachers do anything wrong. I taught my teachers and they were dealing with their students in a one-on-one capacity. So when I use that reference point where you have the kids listening and the kids throwing things around, that those are kind of the two most populous personality packs. And what I would always tell my teachers is, you have to understand that the one that throws things around, their value system is totally different, and you cannot change that. If you try to change it, it's not healthy for them, and it's not going to be particularly effective for you. So like that personality pack, the one that's throwing things around and maybe not necessarily following the rules, they're the type who, if you tell them, hey, if you do not eat the cookies from the cookie jar, because if you do, like let's say a parent tells their kid that, if you take that cookie, I'm going to slap you. Their mindset is going to be, I wonder, is that cookie worth the slap?
Worth the slap. Yeah, I was
right.
just thinking that.
Yeah, and the parent is going to be, no, you don't understand. I want you to not do it because you should respect my authority as the parent. You should not be thinking this way, but that's just the way they think. Cool. And if you don't have that, we wouldn't have effective firefighters. We wouldn't have effective pilots. We wouldn't have effective people in roles that they have to take calculated chances like that in situations where life doesn't really have rules. Like a fire does not have any set rules. You're in a house on fire. You don't know what's going to happen, and you need to be able to adjust and make quick decisions like that. And the person who's constantly needs that feeling of safety and security often does not necessarily make the right decisions, or they tend to get stuck, right? So I think everyone has value.
Don't you think that firefighters do have a set of rules? I mean, they cannot do whatever they want, or it can be worse for their teammate. So I like what you say about calculated risk, but I do believe they still have rules.
They are set on their craft. So it's the equivalent of, let's say if you have a musician, the rules that a musician follows are, this is like a note. This is the scale. These are the techniques that I follow and that I've worked on my entire life. But in terms of you telling me how to make a song, no, I'm going to do it my way. Right. And then when I do this song, I'm not even going to let's say I had a lot of success in my first album, my second album, I'm totally going to change it up and do things a totally different way because that's who I am. Because that personality pack, they don't value safety and security. They value excitement. And you can imagine when two people have those competing values, how they might clash, right? I always say the person who values excitement goes on a roller coaster because they want to feel like they might die. They know they're not going to die, but they love that feeling of maybe I might die because I'm getting thrown around. Whereas the person who values safety and security is like, why would I ever want to feel that way at all? They tend to actually get along really well together. That's the most common romantic coupling, by the way. Yes, exactly. Because they know the person who values safety and security, they might seem a little boring. So if they match up with someone just like them, they might be like, oh God, we're going to have a boring life together. They love that person who's really exciting and fun. And then of course the exciting person's like, they realize I can't have someone like me we're going to burn hot and we're going to burn
Yeah.
fast. Like every Hollywood romance, right? Like actors tend to be like that. Actors tend to be that personality pack that likes excitement. So they burn hot and fast, but so often they look for someone who's a little steadier. And so they balance each other.
That totally feels
That
like
really-
us.
I'm the boring one.
You're the stable. I wouldn't say boring. I wouldn't
I'm
call
the
you
one that
boring.
likes security.
Yeah.
I need rules. Otherwise, I'm going insane.
I could sense that from your questions.
I mean,
You're the Bert. And so
I'm the
no one
Bert.
likes really, that's the best comparison I can come up with.
we do need Berts in our world, though.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
yeah, you do.
We do. I totally agree.
Exactly.
I'm like, you need rules. I'm sorry, firefighters have rules.
I mean, this also, to bring it back to the majority of our people are more in corporate America, and this does feel very similar to that too, right? We're not defending against fires every day.
No.
It feels like it.
Yeah, they think we are. They think we are.
But the same thing, like there are so many times where we're stuck having to stick to the rules.
Yeah.
And then you hear me complaining because I'm like, I just want to do this instead of that. Why do I jump through 18 hoops to get to this one thing when it's right there? It's right there.
And me, I would be like, well, because it's a process.
Yes. You're like, but did you
We need
see
process.
this person? I'm like,
Yeah, depending
it
on the
does-
sector, right? The sector,
Yeah.
your sector could have a lot of different personalities too within it. And they tend to do, like I worked with a lot of software engineering companies, and you have the ones that work 9 to 5 and have a very steady, like organized, like structure. They know when they're going to go, they know what their objectives and they're trying to hit, and they lead teams to try to reach these objectives and keep everyone together. But you also have like the firefighters who are on 24/7. And I think they're called, in software engineering terms, they're called the knock team, if I'm correct. And they go in there if there's a problem with the website. So they got to be on 24/7, right? Because people are on the web 24/7. So if there's a problem, they get in there right away and fix it. And they like it. They love being on there. Like,
Eric, when people come to you for these quizzes, what's the most common reason they're coming? Is it because of team dynamics? Is it just to learn? What would be the rationale?
depending on who it is, but probably the majority of people just want to know who they should hook up with. I think that's the number one thing. They're like, okay, what personality am I and who should I be looking for? Who should I bang tonight? Oftentimes what they're thinking about.
Not the answer I was expecting.
I've done talks at a professional office, and I do the whole like, oh, this is how you guys are going to work together. And this is why this person is bossy, in quotes. And this is why this person is a little more free flowing, and just appreciate it, guys. And I'm having this whole discussion. And then at the way end, I'm like, oh, does anyone have any questions? And then the first question, so if I'm this type, who should I be looking for as a mate? That's the number one question that people ask. I don't have set answers because I don't believe in a soulmate per se. I do think that certain types do gel better with other types. And it's not going to be a type that's like you. You're going to get definitely sick or annoyed with a type that's exactly like you.
Well, I could not be with a type like me. That would definitely set me off.
Yeah, which is good. That's your natural instincts, right? Like in general, people understand that, but that's generally what people want. I don't know who they should hook up with, but I often work with students, and with the students, I'm really just teaching them how to grow into the best possible version of themselves versus the best possible version of what they're being told they should be like.
That is a great segue into where our work bestie community is and how they all want to level up their skill set. Knowing the different types of personalities, what are some of the things that they will learn from that to will help them get to that next level?
When it comes to the next level, we often think of skills, right? But with personality, it's great because it's not, I think a lot of people like learning about personality types because they want to know, what am I good at? And I'm like, well, just because you're a certain personality doesn't mean you're automatically going to be brilliant at one thing. I have a friend who is the same personality type as Einstein. And he's always like, I'm the same personality type as Einstein, but that doesn't automatically make anyone like our personality type a genius. Einstein was a genius. He's like, I know a hell of a lot about fantasy football and massage therapy. So I'm just a nerd about those two things. That is what I am, because it's that type really loves information. That's what they seek, and they're total nerds about it, which you can imagine someone like that would be very much like Einstein, right? But the nice thing about personality, it tells us kind of what we're going to like, and the things that we like, we tend to do more often. So what I would recommend your listeners is find out what personality type you are, because ideally you might be doing something that maybe you're forcing yourself to like, and maybe finding out your personality type will help you go, oh, that makes sense because I've always liked to do things like this. And it'll give you almost like a permission slip to actually pursue those things. And the more you do them, then the better we get, and thus our skills rise.
And so the framework is Youtopia 16. Does it mean that it's 16 personalities?
And that's going to be a number that's familiar to a lot of people because the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs, also uses that. But my methodology is very different. to get to those 16 different types. And in the book, it explains the differences. So in a Myers-Briggs, the difference between, I'm going to be saying a lot of random letters here, the difference between an ENTP and an INTP would be, in Myers-Briggs terms, one would be extroverted and the other would be an introverted version. In my methodology, it's completely different based on their value system. And since those types value information, then the difference in personality is going to manifest itself in that way.
Is there something that like is similar to being introvert versus extrovert that you would be able to tell from a value statement?
So mine breaks down, because depending on what personality type you are, you'll get that way in a very different methodology. Introversion, extroversion does tend to work. And I explain it in the book for like half the population, because that population that values safety and security, their number one way that they get that safety and security is being part of a structured society, right? They're very involved in the social system. So that's extroversion, introversion does kind of have a priority for them, right? How do they interact with people in a social situation? But if your value system is information, you could care less about people. A personality fact, sometimes that often is the case where they're just like, I don't care about, I'm here for information. And then people say, oh, they're autistic or they're serial killers or sociopaths, you know, and it's a small percentage of the population too. So they get kind of pushed off to the side. But we need people like that. Einstein was that way. The difference will be the way that extroversion, introversion manifests is totally different. It would be like the difference between an experimental physicist and a theoretical. One gets the processes their information by experimenting and trying different things, and the other processes information by theorizing and observing.
What does value mean? Is it like when you see the values, is it because my value is like the picket fence and all that? So how do you define values?
I define values based on what do we want, right? So it's not the what, but the why, right? So you could have multiple writers. You could see they're doing the same thing, but they're not the same personality type just because they're writing, right? No one sees Hemingway and thinks he's the same as Tolstoy. Someone who values safety and security might want the white picket fence, or they might want something else that gives them safety and security. They might want to move up in their job and level up in their job and have like authority within that job sector. That person who wants that safety and security through a job versus the person who wants that safety security versus the white picket fence with a family, they can often be very similar, right? Because they have the same value system and they're going to get along and they're going to understand each other very well. Speaking for my mom, who was that person who valued authority and wanted safety and security from feeling like she was important, she did move up the ranks in her work environment, but she didn't necessarily love being a mother. That wasn't her priority. And a lot of other people who love being parents would be like, oh my God, I can't believe that. But she was a good parent. She did everything she was supposed to. But that wasn't a particular value system for her. But she would totally get along with someone who valued that because she would say, oh, we both value safety and security. Whereas the person who values like information, there's going to be a big conflict.
All right, I get that. In your framework, can you give us examples of other well-known or even fictional characters and what style they would be in your 16 framework, so we kind of get a sense?
I mean, I sometimes use comic book. Almost everyone's seen the Avengers and Marvel stuff, so I'll use that sometimes. Like Iron Man. Iron Man's a very clear example of someone who prioritizes information. And Captain America is someone who prioritizes safety and security. And it's kind of cool because you can see their clash. They're both heroes. They both want what's right, but they have very, very different methodologies of how to get there. Whereas like Captain America is all about sacrifice because that's a very strong value system of his. Captain Iron Man is more about sacrifice is great, but it's also kind of stupid. I'm all about information. So I'm going to troubleshoot this. What's the line where Captain America is like, would you fall on a wire to sacrifice to help the guy behind you? Iron Man's like, I'll just figure out a way to cut it. And we need both those people, right? We need both those. That's very important.
And like you said before, you know, those two people can learn from each other.
Yes. That's the important thing too, is I'm a big believer in growth. Once you're very secure in who you are, it's good to borrow from other types because they're going to have strengths that you do not have. I always say our strengths are based on our weaknesses. My personality type, my big flaw was that I get super excited and enthusiastic about stuff and I start a lot of things and I don't finish any of them. So it's good to know that because you can consciously, I'm like, okay, I need to finish at least some of the things that I start. Now, I'm not going to be able to finish all of them. I know that about me, but I can't be like that dog, like playing with a toy and then a Frisbee gets thrown and I go chase the Frisbee all the time, right? And there are other types who are like constantly, they don't start anything that they can't finish. So I can learn a lot from that type and I can ask them, oh, like, how are the ways that you finish the things that you start? And then they can teach you, oh, well, I make a plan and all that kind of stuff. And you don't have to do all those things, but I think it's good to borrow some of those things so that we can grow.
Right. You can learn from each other.
Yeah, I love that.
So I'm curious if you have an idea of what you think our two types are.
Well, you gave it away already a little bit. So, I mean, I love to guess that when you were asking the questions about but we have to follow the rules, right? Because there has to be order, right? You can't have non-order. That definitely shows that your value system is safety and security. I'd imagine like your greatest fear is chaos or just things like with no absolute rules at all.
What? Yeah, because I'm a mess in my mind. No,
Mm.
it's true. I'm a mess in my mind. So
Your
I
head's
need,
chaos.
exactly, I need order and processes all over. I'm going to be all over the place. Like you see my desk, it's like a bomb came up, but I have to like, otherwise I need process or it won't work for me.
Here's a question. Do you value like the idea of authority? Like do you believe in like a structure of authority? Like I follow the person above me and then they follow the person above them and so forth.
Well, when you say yes, I still have this respect, right? I'm never going to say you're an idiot to my superior because they are my superior, right? At the
Mhm.
end of the day. So I am going to say if I don't agree with something, I will say it. I don't agree because one, two, and three,
Respectfully is what you're saying.
respectfully. But if at the end they say, no, this is going to be my way, then I'm like, okay, I say my point of view. Peace out.
Would you ever quit a job if it got really that bad where they were like, you have to do
I
it this
quit a
way?
job.
And you're like, no, I don't agree.
I quit a job because
Yeah?
of a boss.
Okay.
Oh, terrible.
Well, not just the boss, but I mean like the
value?
clashing of values.
No, because I tend to see the same value. I think I had the same value as my boss, actually, except the last one. That's why I left. I left
Hmm.
because I couldn't say my point of view.
Got it.
Did you when you've watched Game of Thrones?
Yes, but all those, I forgot who those people were.
You forgot them?
Yeah, all of them.
We'll go binge watch it.
You should. There's a Game of Thrones test on my site so you can figure out what Game of Thrones character you are.
Oh my god, I want to take that.
Yeah, it's funny because it's based on. I mean,
Arya.
you're an Arya Stark. Okay, well, number one, everybody says they are Arya Stark because she's so cool and everyone likes her and she's very
She
likable.
is very cool. No, you know who I loved was the she's now in The Last of Us.
Bella Ramsey.
Yes, she was like the I forget the name of her character, but
Yeah, I like
she
her.
was
She's a
a
Mormont.
badass character.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's a Mormont. So for you, like, but you definitely gelled with that hunter. So I call them gatherers and hunters, the two packs that value safety and security, and one values excitement. Because I kind of use it based on our roles in medieval villages, right? We need the most gatherers, so that's why we have more gatherers in the world, right? And then we need a lot of hunters as well, but hunting is dangerous, so some of them die. And kind of like in our society, hunting jobs
It's
or
nice
jobs that
seeing
hunters
you.
go. Yeah. Not to say that you have a short lifespan or expected lifespan, but sometimes they tend to take. My sister's a hunter. The first job she got out of college was on a deep sea Alaskan fishing boat, and that's actually a dangerous job. Now she was not actually like the fisherman because she was not physically strong enough, but that's like she was on the boat. She was in Alaska and she was like checking out their catch to see if like they were supposed to catch it or they weren't. That's a job that a hunter, like a person who likes excitement, would like. They're just like, no, I don't want a 9 to 5. I want to go on a boat for like 4 months out of the year, you know? So I understand. So you seem a little hunterish, but since you like that character, the Mormon character, but you only because you said she was badass, right? Like she's really tough. You maybe might be like Arya Stark. Arya Stark's a shark personality type, and she's a hunter. Hunters are like the larger pack, and then there's 4 animals within each of the 4 packs. So 4 times 4, of course, makes 16. So the shark is one of the hunters, and they're pretty tough and they're aggressive, even though you don't seem to come off as mean. So I don't know if you're a shark. Sharks sometimes come off as mean. Would you say you're more, how do you come off?
I don't know. In the work environment, I can be.
Mean?
Yeah.
I don't think you're mean in the work environment. No.
I'm very straightforward.
One of the flaws of a shark is that they're stubborn. Because a shark is like, okay, I see what I want, I kill it. You know, like they're very, you know, yeah. I mean, they are very, so their stubbornness is negative, right? But they're positive. The positive part of that is they're also like really determined, right? So Arya, of course, is like super determined. Is she pretty narrow-minded? Sometimes she can be, right? And and it hurts her a bit. And she's a bit reckless sometimes. Other sharks on Game of Thrones are like Tyrion's friend Bronn. He's a shark. Jaime Lannister is not a shark, but he's similar in a lot of ways. Anyway, I'm sorry. I don't want to keep using pop culture references that people will probably not understand, but just...
Okay, no, it helps relate a little bit more.
Yeah.
I kind of get it more.
Those value, are you born with it? Or it just happened like with what happened with your life?
What do you think?
Because I'm going to say that because I was rhythmic gymnast in my youth, doing competition and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You need orders. Like we had our choreographer saying, you jump, we say, how high, right? There was no saying. She was Russian too. So, I mean, I'm sure she's still Russian, but so she was very methodical, and it was like, you do that authoritative, and you had no choice but follow the rules or you were out, which brought us to quite high up. So that shaped my personality as well, because I was like from the age of 11 to 18 to know that I had to follow the rules of someone.
And the hierarchy.
So that's why, does it mean that
you wouldn't have had that before?
I would not have had it before, or would have?
I don't know. And the question of whether we're born with it or not, I have no answer to that because I don't know. I do think there's a difference between, I say our personality is based on like what we grew up with, like what we're taught, but also our personality type, right? Because I always say, people often say, oh, I'm part of this culture, how this culture is, right? But I know what the stereotype of that culture is, but for every Japanese person who like does not like physical touch and will bow and is not going to hug you, there is a peacock personality type because they make up like 8% of the population, and peacocks always love to hug. Once again, Game of Thrones, they're like Robert Baratheon, the big king, the big fat king who loves to bear hug everybody. And if they grow up in Japan as a kid, they're going to have problems. Like their parents are going to say, no, this is the proper way to do it. And they're going to kind of feel like left out. And on the flip side, I have a friend who's Cuban, and in Latin culture, it's oftentimes a lot about kissing and hugging your family, and he's a shark, so he's like, do not touch me, this is my space, do not do that, but he's forced to. And so I do think it's a mixture of that, where sometimes how we're brought up is not necessarily what totally matches our personality, and that can be unhealthy for us. And part of our growth process is learning those things are important and they make us who we are, but also this is actually my personality type, and maybe now that I'm 40 or 50 or 60 or whatever, I want to explore this and be truly happy.
Maybe if I wasn't into the safety, I would not have continued the sport because it would not have gone with my values.
That's what I was going to say. I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Your upbringing helps bring some of this out to light, but I don't think your family values create your own values. It just helps you figure them out.
Yeah.
Because I think the element is you. That's what makes us also a unique and individual. It's thinking how many families, think of my own, like all my siblings have very distinct personalities. Do we all mesh and get along? Yeah, but politically we're not all the same. Like we're all very different, and we were all both raised by the same two parents.
Oh yeah, my sister and I are totally different.
So I think it's both, right?
Yeah.
I love using like how you used your siblings. That's the whole point of my book too, is like I'm saying things that I want people to identify with, not because they're reading it and they're going, oh, I'm going to listen to these things, but more like reading and going, oh, like they start saying, oh, I know this person. And obviously, who do we know more than our family and our siblings and our parents, right? That's the number one thing. And, I said before, and it's kind of jokingly that people want to know who they want to hook up with. And that actually is truly the first question that people have. But if they're being honest, like the second one is if they're parents, they're always going to go like, oh, no wonder why my kid is like, this is the kid that I hate, and this is the kid I love, like they start going, oh, it's not because this kid's an asshole. Yeah. They do say that way jokingly, right? They're like, no wonder why I hate my son. It's more like, oh, okay, because we probably have competing personalities, whereas this other kid, we're more similar. Yeah. Oftentimes the parents, like out of my teachers, the ones who were parents were the ones who got it right away. When I taught them this, they were like, oh, I totally understand this because now I know how to treat my children differently. And sometimes they're already treating their children differently, just instinctively, right? Because they're like, okay, this is not going to work with this kid, so I got to use different things. My father treated us all differently, and he knew nothing about personality types, but I think he instinctively did. And so he gave my sister all the freedom in the world. He called me dumb shit for my entire life because he knew that I worked best with a chip on my shoulder. And then my little brother's nickname was Mr. Wonderful. Those are all different methodologies, and they all worked because he knew that my younger brother, he loved safety and security, so he needed that comfort zone. If you tweaked him a little bit, that would not be very effective, right? But for me, like I work on principle, so thus he wanted to like tweak that because he knew that I would work better and be highly motivated if I felt like I was being wronged in some way. So that worked. We can all learn how to work with, understand our family better through personality.
Well, and I think work-wise too, right?
Same.
Yeah. When you're thinking about you manage a team, maybe the only slight difference is understanding based on where you are in the pecking order, right? The oldest, the middle, the youngest does play into it too. And I think some of your personalities shift, and parenting styles shift because of that. But from a work-wise, you could relate that to those that have been in your team for a while, those that are newer,
and you have to manage differently depending on the personality and what is going to drive that person,
their values. It comes back to the values. You're right.
Exactly.
You're right, because you can think about like there's certain individuals that they are amazing individuals, but not as motivated as the rest. And it's because of their values. And how do you get them to relate to the work in a different way? Because it's not going to be the same as somebody who's a rule follower. You just tell them the rules and they go with it.
I mentioned the 2 packs that make up about half the population and a third, but that leaves about like 15 to 16% of people. And there are 2 packs within those 15 or 16%. So those are, for lack of a better term, minority packs. When you encounter people like that, it's often like people are like, wait, what is this person? Who is this person? Like, why are they so weird? You know, and I say weird. I'm one of the pack, so I've gotten that quite a bit, actually. It can throw people off, especially in a work environment. You're like, wait, what is wrong with this person? Why are they so different in terms of their motivation structure than everyone else? And so it behooves us to like understand all the types, and especially because those types do tend to get lost because of the dichotomy that everyone knows is that the Bert and Ernie, the odd couple dichotomy. That's a very common one, and people kind of understand that. You know, and once again, that makes about 85% of the population, but there is that other 15% that, you know, where the Einsteins go into, or the, I don't know, like the very spiritual people go into.
Eric, what's the most common personality type for leaders? And then like give us examples of like maybe an eccentric leader like Elon Musk versus a more common leader.
That's a great question because, you know, it goes back to that whole like people like, oh, what personality type am I? Because I want to know what I'm good at. Leading is great because just like writing, I think every personality type can be a leader in their own way, but it's best for them to lead in their own way, the style that fits for them, right? So if you're a stag personality type, so that's part of the gatherer pack, the safety and security, you're going to lead, I won't say through fear. At your worst, you're going to lead through fear, but you're going to lead with authority. You're going to be like, hey, I'm in charge, and orders go down. My mom was that type. So she was a school principal. And so I always told her like, yeah, you're big on authority. She's like, no, I don't care. And I'm like, okay, what if someone parked in your parking space? Because she would have a parking space, right? The best parking space at her school, right? And she's like, oh, yeah, but no one would ever do that. I'm like, see, that's exactly that mentality that no one would ever park in your parking space shows exactly how you think. That I'm the authority, right? But there are other types that lead in, like, so Elon Musk is a great example. He is a Smith. Smiths are part of that personality pack that value information. So they're the ones that often people think are artistic or sociopaths because they often, if you ask a Smith, like I had a parent ask me once because her kid was a Smith, and she's like, is there something wrong with him? I mean, no, he's totally fine. This is his personality. Because what she said was, she was like, oh, I was in this dress and I was getting ready for a party, and I asked him, how do I look? And he said, terrible. And then she was like, what? And he's like, well, you asked. And she's like, yeah, she was telling me, she's like, I expect him to say like, you look great, Mom. And I'm like, well, you know, he took you.
Why do you ask?
Yeah, exactly. He was like, well, he felt his best version of being a son was giving you an honest answer. So, but punch that up to 1,000 in terms of like things that offend people. And that's when you get like people in the public sphere who are like Smiths, and people are like, oh my God, are they autistic? So he leads through his priorities information. So he's kind of leading through that. He's a chimpanzee personality type. Are they the best leaders? They're great at like leading through innovation and kind of going, look, this is how I lead. I'm going to give you guys ideas, and this is what we're going to follow. Am I going to care about your social life? Am I going to care about your family? Sorry, no, I don't care. Like, I just want us to create the best invention possible. So Steve Jobs, same personality as Elon Musk, known for not being the most sensitive of individuals. But as long as you understand that and understand what they bring to the table and appreciate that, then I think that's like a start, right? They're not going to be the people who ask you about your wife and kids, or your, you know, husband and kids.
So the goal to know those personalities, ultimately to know how to communicate with them, correct?
Yes, that's like a really great like skill set to have through personality, is like, because you're going to know, like, everyone communicates at a different level too, based on our values. And some people are abstract communicators, some people are concrete. That's probably the biggest divide. And about 85% of the population are concrete. And for an abstract person, they're used to assimilating, right? They're used to being around people who say, oh, what did you eat today? Oh, I ate a bagel and cream cheese, and I got it at this place, and it's one of my favorite places, and I go there every morning, and I drive there in this car that I bought at this dealership or online. Like, they're used to those very concrete conversations. But an abstract conversation is very different and sometimes difficult for concrete people. I was once with like 4 of my teachers, with one concrete person and 3 abstract people, which is a very uncommon situation, like in general population. And one person started talking about John Carpenter, and then another person started jumping on top of that about, oh, this is my favorite movie because I love the theme of this, and when they did this, and the concrete person was just like, she's like, oh my God, like, are these people aliens? Like, what am I listening to right now?
Where are they going?
Yeah, what is going on with this conversation? So like communication, sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but I think knowing whether you're a concrete personality type or an abstract personality type also helps, because I think it's good to be able to do both if possible, but still stay true to yourself as well at the same time.
What is the communication for abstract?
So abstracts, they tend to like to talk about their feelings and ideas. And that's often how concrete people treat abstract people. Is like, no, I don't care about all that abstract stuff. Let's go to the nuts and bolts. Like, how is that affecting like real people in their real lives in the physical world? And that's the difference.
That's helpful for sure. Eric, how would people find out about these different 16 personalities? What would you recommend for people to do if they're interested in more?
Buy this wonderful book called The Power of Personality. You can find it on Amazon or anywhere you buy books. Go to Barnes & Noble. You can order it from there, or your local bookstore. If you're really interested in this and you want to know more, I would go on my website. You can take the test at I have 2 sites, business site. One is projectutopia.com, and that's Youtopia with like YOU, like YouTube. And the other is utopiaproject.com. So just flip them around. And you can actually take the test on either of those sites. And once you take the test, and you'll get a description, and if you like what you're reading and if it like gels with you and you think you want to learn more, then I definitely recommend buying the book, because the book is basically me teaching you how to become the test and read and understand the people around you.
So we did have one last question. What's that one simple, powerful shift that you think can help people show up better to make them more about themselves this week?
This I would definitely recommend taking the test online, finding what personality type you are, reading the portrait though, and seeing if it matches, because I always recommend finding the one that speaks to you, because once you find what speaks to you, then for this week, at least do one thing that you really enjoy. Like, not something that you feel like you have to do, because I think so much of our lives we're told what we have to do, but think of something that you truly want to do. Oh, today is the first day that I'm going to meditate. Find that one thing you want to do today based on your personality type.
Huge thank you to Eric G. for helping us rethink how we show up at work and in life.
Because personality isn't something to fix. It's the foundation for connection, clarity, and growth.
Whether you're navigating team tensions or just trying to feel more yourself at work.
And remember, self-knowledge isn't a luxury. It's a real leadership tool.
So tag your work bestie and take that Youtopia 16 assessment together.
You might be total opposites or a perfect puzzle piece.
And if you've ever been told to tone it down to fit in,
this is your reminder. Your difference is your edge.
Follow us at Work Besties Who Podcast for more conversations that help you show up at work and in life with confidence and clarity.
And a whole lot more you.
Thank you. Remember, whether you're swapping snacks in the break room, rescuing each other from endless meetings, or just sending that perfectly timed meme, having a work bestie is like having your own personal hype squad.
So keep lifting each other up, laughing through the chaos, and of course, thriving. Until next time, stay positive, stay productive, and don't forget to keep supporting each other.